My sister doesn't sleepwalk. My mum and little sister are in a bad car wreck. Emma made it, but Mum didn't. The coroners carried our sweet, beautiful mother away in 2 body bags, and Emma, who was 11 at the time, remembers the whole thing. I know, no one should have been surprised when she got into her teens and started having issues. She wasn't a bad kid, but she was failing school and doing a lot of dumb things. My dad, for all his success in business, didn't understand, or maybe he didn't want to. So I stepped up and told her that if she stayed out of trouble, we'd go camping. It was something she'd always loved as a kid. On one such trip, we drove up to our favourite campsite in a mountain clearing. Lush ferns and mossy undergrowth fringed the perimeter, and in the middle was a circular fire pit, bordered by smooth stones and blackened from the ashes of old fires. To one side was a rough wooden table and a couple of benches, and on the other side, a little creek wound its way into the trees. Pitching the tent was a pain in the arse, but Emma had gotten pretty good at starting fires, so I guess her juvenile delinquency wasn't without its perks. As the sun went down, we made s'mores, and it was a nice normal night, until Emma unzipped her duffel bag. She pulled out a flat pink rectangle that at first glance looked like a notebook. When I saw the little Oreo-sized planchette that came with it, I realised what it was. My first reaction was to make a joke, but as her smile faded and tears welled up, I felt bad and apologised. Now, before you guys gang up on me and tell me what an idiot I was for going along with this, shut up. I believed in cold hard science, and I still do. For the most part. My life experiences up to that point had given me no reason to think that this was dangerous. She set out the little spirit board in the warm glow of our campfire, and I sat across from her while she asked it generic ghost hunting questions. For the first 15 minutes, nothing really happened. It moved around a little bit but didn't spell anything. I told her how the thing was intended to work. The power of suggestion mixed with people seeing what they want to see. Anyway, we were just about to call it a night, when the movements of that thing changed from gentle figure 8s to abrupt straight lines. It spelled IWANTIN. Emma and I looked at each other. Her eyebrows pinched together, she stared down at the board. It didn't move again after that. Horribly creeped out, I told her, nice try, and headed off to bed. She was upset that I took my hand off the thing without saying goodbye to it, and after a brief sisterly spat, we changed the subject and eventually fell asleep. When I woke up and found Emma's sleeping bag empty, I figured she went out to answer nature's call, but when minutes turned into a half hour, cautiously I unzipped the tent, its sound seeming unnaturally loud in the pitch blackness. Emma? I called out into the silence. The only response was the faint rustling of leaves, swaying in the gentle wind. An uneasy feeling settled over me, a cloud of dread that was impossible to shake off. Pulling out my phone, I switched on the flashlight, its artificial glow casting long, distorted shadows across the campsite. I searched the surrounding area, the beam of light jumping from one patch of underbrush to another, each time hoping to find my sister. Emma! I shouted, my voice reverberating off the distant trees, shattering the tranquility of the night. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the growing terror within me as I shoved my boots on and ventured further out into the trees. Every rustling leaf, every crunching twig seemed to amplify my fear. As panic twisted my insides into a tight knot, visions of all possible dangers flashed in my mind, making it hard to breathe. What if she had fallen into a creek? Or got dragged off by a bear? Or... Before I could descend into a full-blown panic attack, I saw a figure slowly emerging from the trees. The sight of those scrawny legs, and the flash of her silly pink SpongeBob pajamas, momentarily caught me off guard. She walked as though in a daze, barefoot, her face pale as a sheet. "Where the heck were you?" I grabbed her and pulled her into a hug. She just blinked a few times and said, "I guess I must have been sleepwalking." Guys, my sister doesn't sleepwalk. I never saw a kid that slept so hard in my life. It didn't dawn on me until later that despite being ice cold, she wasn't shivering. That wasn't even the weirdest part. The rest of the weekends, she was quiet. Like, weirdly quiet. Stranger still was the fact that she stopped getting into fights at school. She didn't get into screaming matches with my dad anymore, and her grades even improved. The rational thing to do would be to pat myself on the back for being a positive influence and call it good. But somehow, I can't shake the feeling that the thing that came back from that camping trip isn't my sister. Sometimes when she looks at me, it's like she hates me. I'm just being paranoid, right? The Ice Cream Man. My best friend and I love to go swimming on warm spring days, where the cool breeze makes the flowers and grass dance, and the cold water on your skin sends a chilly shiver down your spine. We would always choose the absolutely most perfect days. The days where the sun is bright and the sky without clouds. The days where the birds seem to sing a chipper tune. The days where it seems that nothing could ever go wrong. We'd done this sort of tradition for many years, ever since we moved into the cabin, which was around when I turned 19. We both wanted to get out of our small town to get away from our parents. It was still to this day one of my favourite memories, just swimming in that little pond as our young, fresh selves. Now that I'm 24 and my friend 25, our visits to the pond are here and there. We don't go as frequently as we used to, both busy or tired. I miss it. Mostly the bonding time that he gave us. While doing nothing at home on a lukewarm spring day, my friend brought up the pond and said we should go for a dip. This surprised me, as I was usually the one to want to go in the water, and I usually had to convince her. I, of course, said yes, and packed up food, a blanket, and towels. We began our trip to the quaint pond, which was a walk a ways. It took around 20 minutes of scenic hiking to get to our destination. Near the pond, maybe 200 yards, there was an old dirt road that was hardly, if ever, used. We could just see the road from the pond if we looked through the trees really hard. The water was gorgeous. Small ripples spread across the surface from the light breeze that swept through the clearing that the pond was nestled in. The clearing consisted of wild flowers, shades of yellow, blue and white, of all shapes and sizes. It was surrounded by thick brush whilst thinning near the road. We set up camp right near the water on the little small beach, which is really just tiny rocks that lined the side of the pond. The sun felt good in contrast to the frigid water that your body took time to get used to. I slowly waded into the water and submerged my body underneath. We swam leisurely for a while, chatting and laughing. I got hungry and needed food, so I paddled back to the bank to get something to eat. I was chattering and my hands were a pale, bluish purple colour that made me chuckle. I was freezing cold and my shakiness made that evident. I was looking for where I put the towels when I noticed it. Though the sun was just on the edge of dipping behind the trees, I could still see the large ice cream truck parked on the usually deserted road. My heart sank into my stomach, and this nonsensical gut feeling of terror rushed over me, making my blood pump and my body heat up. I didn't know how long it'd been parked there, but I did know that it wasn't there when we first got to the pool of water. I stopped my search for the towels, dripping wet nonetheless, and said in a whisper shout to my friend, who was still carelessly floating, "Get out, someone's here." The smile that was on her face dropped, and she splashed around trying to stand up in the pond. We were both frightened to no end and not sure what to do in this situation. Hardly anyone ever came out here, only to hunt or if an elderly couple were looking for land to build a house on. That was the main reason we came out here, to get away from people. This ice cream truck with faded pink and blue graphic designs was parked not even a football field away, How did we not hear it pull up? How did we not see it? But there it was, parked and silent. We stood still for a second, marveling over how out of place it looked. Finally, leaving our trance, we packed up our stuff, eyes rarely leaving the van. I put my shoes on and pulled back my still soaking, wet hair into a ponytail. I took a single step forward, with my back turned from the ice cream van, and loud crackly music blasted from the vehicle. I swear I jumped a mile high out of fear. And I whipped my head to the car. I stumbled back away from it, my friend right with me, scared shitless. Birds flew away from the ice cream truck, squawking in a flurry of fear. My head was dizzy with fear of not knowing what was going to happen. We walked backwards, slowly retreating to our cabin. The trip took almost twice as long as it took to get there, because of the silent, careful trek we took. The truck was out of sight soon after we got further away from the pond, so it was unknown where it was. We could still hear the classic chime of the jingle that ice cream trucks would play as we walked further and further away, but it slowly faded out. It was now dark out, the walk ending way past sunset. We was walking towards the back of the cabin when we saw the headlights shining on the front side of the house. We paused, not knowing what to do. My breath got caught in my throat as the truck shut off and the lights dimmed to completely off. Everything was silent besides the sound of my pounding heart. Nothing like this had ever happened in the while we'd been living here. We decided to creep up into the back door of the house. We'd set our stuff down a while back away from the house, with the idea having free hands would be preferable. I slowly inserted the key into the knob and twisted it. The seemingly loud sound of the metal parts grinding filled the air. I heard my friend curse under her breath as she nervously looked around, scanning the area. The classic tune of the ice cream truck that was so nostalgic blasted again, filling each of us with dread. Why was this happening? More specifically, why was it happening to us? The song drowned out the keys jingling, and we barged into the house. Quickly, my friend rushed over to the home phone. She smashed buttons into the phone, and she was soon met with the unsettling buzz of the line being disconnected. She looked up at me with fear showing on her face. The buzzing rang on as we stared at each other, mouth agape, not knowing what to do next. The music slowed down into an eerie, corrupted version of the already scratchy melody, and the headlights began to flash on and off into the front windows. Then, the silhouette of a tall man, what seemed to be a bunny mask, was made clear out of the window that overlooked the front yard. It seemed to be wielding a large rifle, which was aimed straight through the window.